Now, go on. Are you a conviction politician?
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I entered this race. I do think there's a lack of conviction in politics. I think it's a public relations stunt far too often. I think it's, rather than expressing passionate principles and deeply held views, politicians are instead presenting scrupulously crafted sentences, often with the press in mind. And it's a media circus rather than robust political debate, and I think we need to return to that urgently, actually.
How long have you been involved in politics?
I've been a member of the Labour Party just over 5 years. I was a supporter before that. I've not been a parliamentary candidate before, although I have been a council candidate before in London, in a Lib Dem safe seat, but we almost got them. We came within 100 votes of getting rid of them, but unfortunately. But this is my first real parliamentary shot.
What are the issues that you hold most dear?
The first issue, and the one that I'm most concerned about and I think is most urgent, is the NHS. I think we've lost sight of why we had an NHS, we've lost sight of why the Labour Party created the NHS, and we need to return to those principles. And it's under a very sustained attack now by the Tories. I think they're going to try and do now what Thatcher couldn't do, which was entirely privatise the NHS. I mean, they're starting with various departments. They've now privatised their hospital, the very first hospital, and they're going to keep going. And I think it's one of the most urgent issues. It's certainly on the top of my list, is to rescue the NHS.
But somebody once said, somebody came to Britain and looked at the NHS and said to somebody, "Do you not know Joseph Stalin's dead? Do you not think it was great in 1945, but is almost outmoded?"
It's totally ludicrous. It's a totally ludicrous thing to call it Stalinist or anything of the kind. It's a social contract almost, which is to everyone's benefit. We all put into the pot and then we all get out of it. And it's healthcare as well. I mean, maybe I'd take on those arguments on other issues, but we're talking about people's health and people's lives, and it's too important to leave to the mercy of the markets. And I completely reject any suggestion that it's Stalinist. I just think that's ridiculous and a way of slurring and smearing one of our best institutions.
Thurrock's an interesting area, isn't it? It's an area which is at crossroads. What are your impressions so far?
I really, it reminds me actually of where I grew up in Dublin. It's a solid, down-to-earth people. I like places that are on the water. I really like it. It reminds me of where I come from. And I would love to live here. I really would, and I mean that sincerely.
You've entered a political campaign, and it seems to be, how do I say it? It should have been a straightforward race between 7 or 8 candidates, but a lot of people are insinuating that it's a bit of, how do I say it? Some people seem to think it's a bit of a fix.
To be honest with you, I didn't know there was anything unusual going on. I don't really have I'm more concentrating on myself and what I want to put forward, and I'm not going to spend too much time sort of thinking or worrying about that. I just want to sell my policies and my thoughts and how I feel about things to people, and hope that they chime with that and vote for me.
Do you describe yourself as a left-wing politician?
I don't really describe myself. I mean, most of what I believe would be standard left-wing, but I wouldn't really describe myself as a left or right or anything of the kind. I just believe in what I believe in. I believe in a strong public sector. I believe in the NHS, and if there was a traditional left-wing, yes, so I suppose, but it's not something I sort of sell myself as. But those are what I believe in. Yeah.
There are strikes coming up next week on November the 30th. Is that something you endorse?
I definitely endorse the right to strike, and I think the Labour Party needs to stand up for the right to strike more often. On this particular one, I always support the trade unionists. I'm sort of always naturally inclined to support the trade unionists anyway, and I think Labour needs to reconnect with the trade unionists. Obviously I support dialogue and strikes as a last resort perhaps, but they're definitely very, very important, and too important to be gambling away on market-based politics, or, the right to strike has to be defended, and we have to keep defending it. So on this particular particular one, I have some reservations, perhaps because I don't know the details enough and I can't comment, but generally I support strikers, and I certainly support the right to strike, yeah.
You've got a couple of weeks before the vote. What's going to happen between now and then?
I think I'm going to be very busy between now and then. I'll try and see as many people as I can, talk to as many people as I can, and as I said, focus on what I'm trying to represent, what I'm trying to tell people, which is that we need a return to core labour values. We need to protect our public sector, and hope that people join with that. But I'll be around for the next few weeks trying to talk to as many people as possible, and tell them who I am.